Today on the podcast, we're talking axe throwing, escape rooms, and blade and timber. This is the Kansas City Podcast. Welcome to the Kansas City Podcast. I'm your host, Cole Lindbergh. You know, many of you know me from the 94 Lillehammer games. You know, the Olympics are coming up.
It's true.
And if not, it's nice to meet you. You know, each week we are joined by a one-of-a-kind KC native for a conversation on life in the city of fountains. And man, I am in a hell of a place right now. I have traveled back to the West Bottoms. I am at 1101 Mulberry Street, and I have stepped into... it's very, I'm trying to describe it the best I can. It's weird when you're like looking at a building from the outside and then you know that there are like people throwing implements of mass destruction on the inside. And so I'm surrounded by chain link fence and some axes. And I'm here with Matt Baysinger, the co-owner of Blade and Timber. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I sure appreciate it.
No. Thank you for being on the show. Now, we have got a lot to talk about because I'm kind of blown away because I mentioned to you when I came in. When I think about throwing axes, I think about when I was a kid and I went to like the Renaissance Festival and they had like the star throwing and then there was like a bow and arrow, I remember. Oh, yeah. But you were actually like, this is incredible. How many stalls do you have here? And why don't you just tell me a little bit about Blade and Timber and where this started? Yeah,
so we have 10 axe throwing lanes here. And if you were to come here on a Friday or Saturday night, you would see 60 folks throwing axes, you know. I mean, picture a bowling alley, but then picture it with really wonderful, sharp, you know, axes.
Yeah,
so
bowling alley with axes. Okay.
No, we got our kind of start in experiences with Breakout KC. And so we started an escape room about 3 years ago, and it went really well really quickly. And what we realized is folks love doing things. You know, we live in this culture where we love to be on our phones. We love to listen to podcasts. Yeah. Nothing against podcasts,
No,
right?
it's cool. It's cool. No offense taken.
It's so easy to do things that are easy. And with how entertaining our phones are, it's kind of a path of least resistance. And I grew up, and Ryan, my co-owner, was a good friend of mine in high school, and we grew up doing really stupid things all the time. You know, like we weren't the types of kids who got in your typical trouble in high school for like drinking or any of that stuff. Like we got in trouble for just general shenanigans, setting up lawn chairs in the middle of intersections and watching cars and hanging up signs and offering hugs or whatever it was. We were a little bit off the wall. And so we've always kind of had this slant that doing things and having experiences is better than not. And so when Breakout KC took off, our first thought was, okay, where can we expand Breakout KC? And then once we got through expansion or started nearing the end of expansion, one of the questions was, okay, what else is there? Like, what else is out there that is a thing where folks can come together and experience something together so that they can then go and have a great dinner conversation or be closer as a family? And about 1.5 years ago, we saw that axe throwing was really big in Canada.
Okay. And it sounds like something you'd see on like ESPN8, the Ocho. Like, it's like the lumberjack games.
Dude, there are the lumberjack games.
Right,
that's a real thing. Okay. And we actually stream them every single, like when we're open, lumberjack games is brilliant. What you see on TV. Unless there's a Chiefs or Royals game or something like that, we're watching the lumberjack games. And so when we learned of the concept, about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, we have a 30,000 square foot warehouse where we build all of our escape rooms in KCK. Yeah. And we actually, for our staff, for fun as well as just for understanding the concept, we built an axe throwing alley in our workspace about 1.5 years ago. Okay. And it just became kind of the lunchtime activity for all of our staff. We have about 20 folks on staff, and you would always just hear this thunk, thunk during lunchtime or, before or after work. And we had some staff that got really, really good at it. And so it was about 3-4 months ago, Ryan and I were on a work trip, and we were just talking like, what should we do? What are opportunities? And we remembered, we're like axe throwing it's fun. It's awesome if we could just find the right space. And I kid you not, it was like 2 days later, we're having a conversation with the folks that own this building here at 1101. Yeah. And they're just like, hey, we just got this space that freed up. It's 6,000 square feet. Is there something you guys would want to do with it? I bet we could come up with a pretty good plan. And, Ryan and I chatted, and we were just like, dude, this is it. Like, this is the moment. And so we signed a lease with them to get going. And then we put our, 20-man build team to work, and we were open in just a matter of days, and starting to fill the space up with eager axe throwers, on nights and weekends.
So is this a concept that exists right now? Like, are there other axe throwing places in existence, like across the country in Canada?
Oh yeah. Okay. So we're probably one of the first 20 or 30 axe throwing facilities in the States.
I was gonna say, because it's not something that like I would ever think of, like, oh, there's an axe throwing joint opening up. No, it's like it's the last kind of thing on my mind that I would think that you would start up.
Yeah, but gosh, when you look historically and you look at entertainment in the United States or sports in the United States, it wasn't until about 10 years ago bowling was still the most popular sport in the U.S. Like, if you went out and polled 1,000 people, what's your favorite sport? More folks would say bowling than anything else. That's changed in the last 10 years. But there's been, social sports used to be everything, and it was accessible for everyone. And so as we were talking about blade and timber, like, yeah, it's an axe, right? That's a little bit intimidating. That's also part of the allure, is like, man, I get to go throw axes.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you get to come throw axes. Not only that, we teach you how to throw axes to the point that you can actually be good at it.
Okay.
Like, we're not just going to let you come in and just start chucking axes. That's not safe.
No, that's bad news all around.
That is bad news. It wouldn't be fun. But the fun part about axes is you can have, a 110-pound gal and a 500-pound dude come in, and you might say, oh, like, clearly this big old person might be better. This athlete might be better. It's like, no. Like, when folks come in, everyone is on the same playing field because nobody knows how to do it. And so we teach you how to throw axes. We have coaches who have gone through a training and a certification in order to teach people how to throw. And we see people coming in here and just having a blast doing something that they've never done, but yet it's pretty accessible for folks to learn.
So now, is there how's the scoring work? Is it like, I look at the target and stuff, and I'm seeing this. Okay, I have a couple questions. First of all, is how often you got to change the wood? Because you're throwing it like a target with like a bullseye on it, it almost looks like, with points. So, I mean, how often are you changing the wood up?
Yeah, so you're looking at this target here on lane 3, and you can see that middle board is quite a bit fresher than the outside boards.
Yes,
and so those middle boards, we have to swap out about every 2-3 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, they get beat up. People are far better at aiming vertically than horizontally, and so people tend to like aim for the bullseye, and then it might flail north or south. But we have to change that quite a bit. The boards on the outside, the 3s and the 2s and the 1s, they're
looking pretty beat up.
Those ones are kind of beat up because we haven't changed them quite as often. Those we're probably changing every 5 or 6 hours. But with today being a Monday morning, Monday afternoon, weekends are busier, and so by the time it rolls around at the end of the day, they're going to go home, and they'll make sure that it's fresh before our first group comes here tomorrow.
Very nice. So now, how's the scoring work? Is it just like first one to 15, 21 points?
Yeah,
or something?
So there's a couple different games that we can play, right? And that's when folks book to come, it's a 90-minute booking, so they can play a handful of different games. The game that most people will be familiar with, and what we actually have league play opening up next week, and so we're actually almost sold out of our league play.
Okay.
And we're running that through Casey Crew, so we teamed up with folks who have already done leagues in Kansas City. But with league play, it's essentially 10 throws, and so it's 5 sets of 2 throws. An absolutely perfect game would be hitting 9 consecutive bullseyes, and then if you're looking up, there's these blue dots, right?
I see them.
That's the kill shot is what we call it, and so that shot is only available on your 10th throw, and it's actually worth 10. And so a perfect score, I'm trying to do my math, 9 times 6 plus 10, right? Whatever.
64, right?
It sounds about, that sounds 9 times 6, 50.
That's 54.
Yeah, 64. There you go.
Yeah, okay. Whew.
Hey, math is good.
Math pays off, right? Good thing I have my coffee today.
So that's tournament play, and those games are pretty short because it's 10 throws per person. But if you've ever played darts, have you played the sport of darts,
yes,
right? So with darts, there's cricket, there's a game that we call poison, there's horse. I mean, there's a handful of different games, and it's fun because you might be really great at one of them and then not as great at the other, and try to set it up so that it's, again, fun for everybody.
And in all the axes, I mean, every axe weighs the same, right? It's not like there's not different types of axes, right?
No, we don't let people bring their own axes in for safety reasons. Yeah, we've had folks ask. I promise you. Like, can I bring in my throwing stars? We're like,
No.
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 We trust you, maybe, but not today. Yeah, we use the same kind of axe. It's an American-made axe. It's actually single-piece steel, and we do that just because we don't want wooden splinters like bouncing around and hitting folks. Or we want to try to make it as safe as a situation as we possibly can. And so we've put some pretty considerable thought into how we can reduce any ways that would make this an unsafe experience. And one of those is making sure that we have a pretty high standard for the axes that we use.
So I have a long history with games. I won't get too far into it, but all my years at Worlds of Fun in the games department and giving out prizes to people. So I know that there's lots of tips and tricks when you come to games. And I had a lot of games that were throwing balls, darts, things like that. So now, do you have like lots of tips and tricks? Because I am assuming that it's not about how hard you throw the axe.
No.
It is certainly more about form and trying to make it like the certain amount of rotations. Maybe not rotations, but trying to make sure that it's more about accuracy and strategy than it is like, hey, I'm just going to throw this as hard as I can, right?
Yeah, so every time you throw it, it's going to be a single rotation.
Okay.
Speed has, I don't want to say nothing to do with it, because you obviously have to get a certain amount of speed in order to get it to the target. Yeah. So you see the lines on the ground, right? And there's a 12-foot, 13-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot
so in the stall, there's
line.
like lines on the ground. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
I see.
And a lot of dudes in particular come in and they want to be as far back as possible and chuck it as hard as they possibly can their first throw. And it very rarely works out to do that.
That's not going to do it.
No. So it's actually, whether you're throwing, so 12-foot line is like you have to be behind the 12-foot line. That is the league standard.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that you need to toe up. It's not like a free throw where you get toe to line, right? It has everything to do with your height, with the distance, with how tall you are, with how tall your arms are. And so we usually take a look at folks, and if you're standing there at 5'8", we're gonna say, okay, we're gonna start you on the 13-foot line. I'm gonna watch you throw 2 or 3 times, then we're gonna make some adjustments, and I might adjust you forward or backwards depending on your release point and kind of what your mechanics look like.
Yeah.
But yeah, the blades are sharp enough to, if they reach the wood, they're sharp enough to impact the wood and stick.
Very, very, very impressive. So you mentioned league play.
Yep.
And so I know you guys opened in when did you
That's
open?
right, November.
Yep. Okay, so now you're already hit league play.
Oh, yeah.
So it's catching on.
Oh, yeah.
So what's how many teams are going to play?
I would have to look at the signups to see exactly. I know that for the first time in KC Crew history, they ran out of team colors.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it's been a really popular sign up, and truth be told, there's going to be some things that we have to work out. This first time with league play, we're doing a Monday and a Thursday league, and signups are still available through the date that the league actually starts. But league play is 2-person teams, and so just like I just said, for league play you do 10 throws, and so it's essentially 20 throws.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have a big old trophy that we're making in our shop and try to have some fun. And the goal, because our hope is to expand Blade and Timber not just in Kansas City, but to expand it outside of the city as well. And our goal is to really get to a point that we can have like a real champion, not just of a facility, but a champion of actual,
Very nice.
I don't want to say the entire United States per se, but a multi-facility champion has some clout to it for sure, of like, man, I'm the best axe thrower west of the Mississippi or something like that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Now, is there an age restriction?
There's not an age restriction. Obviously, everyone has to sign a waiver, and if you're under 18, you have to be here with an adult who's over 18.
Okay.
That being said, we've had a 7-year-old who has been successful. We do, before we let some folks that we think might not be strong enough just go ahead and start throwing axes, we actually have like a weighted medicine ball, and we have them check to make sure that they can get the ball to the target, make sure that they are strong enough to do it safely for them as well as for the other guests. But yeah, we've had a 7-year-old stick a bullseye. We've had an 89-year-old stick a bullseye as well.
Very nice.
So no age restrictions, more of a strength restriction. There's like those steroid-ridden 5-year-olds who might be able to throw axes.
You have no idea. They're running wild.
But yeah, we have a very, I wouldn't say low tolerance. We have a 0 tolerance policy of unsafe things. And so if a kid comes in and we just realize that it's really a struggle for them, or we think there's a chance that they could cause any sort of harm, we're not going to let that kid throw until they're a little bit stronger.
That makes all the sense in the world. So you've got a really cool setup here. There's tables, people can hang out. Probably what? You got food, you got drinks? What do you got going on?
There's a couple different markets, I suppose, and things that we cater to. And obviously, we do a lot of date nights and bachelor parties and just people coming in and throwing. We also do a fair amount of like corporate team gathering events. I don't want to say team building because it's not like we're, coaching them on anything. But
they wrote boss on the wall and then threw it.
I kid you not, we've had a group who did that. They came in with their boss and they printed out probably 50 pictures of their boss's head and they replaced the bullseyes with those.
Team building,
right? A shared enemy is a good thing to have sometimes. No, but yeah, we do full facility rentals, and like I said, you can have about 60 people throwing at once. We can serve right around 120 people here for a facility rental. We have some space for like meetings or conferences, and then we work with a handful of different restaurants as well to cater in food. Slaps Barbecue being the one that we use the most often, and then Alaz Pizza over in the River Market. And it is, again, it's a social sport, and so if you come with a group of 6, you're only throwing 1/6 of the time, and so for the other 5/6 of the time, we want you, drinking a beverage or hanging out with your buddies or eating some food and just having a good social time where you're here face to face with people having a real conversation, whether you're talking about axe throwing or just spending time together is what's important to us.
It certainly has the appeal of like, oh, it's something totally new, different, I've never done before. It also has a little bit of that danger appeal to it too, which I think kind of adds to it.
Sure.
Do you think, as this grows, do you see, are there other games out there that you could do with axes that aren't just throwing at the wall? Like, is this like the main axe game that's out there, or is there other stuff that's...
So it's a funny question. I can only answer it a little bit because we have some...
away. Oh, okay.
We got some secrets, coming out. But, we, again, I mentioned we're with Breakout KC is kind of our first thing. And then we've done restaurants, we've done bars, we've helped build spaces. And we just recently launched a company in the start of the year called Swell Spark. And that's kind of our parent organization over both Blade and Timber and Breakout KC, as well as concepts that we are in the middle of making.
Got it.
And I really do think that there's probably a whole series of shared experiences, a whole series of social sports that hopefully you'll see from us coming down the pipeline here pretty soon that we're pretty excited and actively working on as well. I don't think that this concept is the end of us creating and bringing new things to the Kansas City area. I think there's other things that you could throw at the wall. Obviously, I think there's also just other activities that they might seem a little bit out of the box at first. But
I'm trying to think like in my mind, like when the late night lumberjack games are on, like what some of the other games
attention.
are. There's the saw through the
single buck.
Okay, then isn't there a climb? Is there a climbing one?
Dude, that's the craziest thing. Yeah, so it's where you have to like notch out 2 things in this big old beam and actually climb up and then saw that. And that is my favorite thing to watch. I don't think we're going to touch that necessarily, at least yet. We have, we have approached some of the big names in Kansas City who do those events to see if we can get one down here in the West Bottoms. And so I don't want to lead you on or say that that's going to happen, but it's something that we're actively working on. I think it would be a ton of fun. But, I think with axe throwing, and your approach to it was very similar to a lot of people are like, dude, we're going to throw axes. Like, isn't this dangerous? How is this legal? Can you let me actually do this? And when we talk with folks about it, we're like, okay, so tell me, like, what is the sport of baseball, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to throw a ball as hard as I can right by your face, and then you try to hit it with a bat that you're swinging as hard as you can. And we're like, okay.
Wait, that's baseball?
That's baseball, right?
Okay.
What is football? Oh, I'm just going to run, and then you run at me as hard as you can and try to tackle me.
Right.
Or even what is bowling? Like, I'm going to hurl a 15-pound ball as hard as I can and see what happens. Like, there's
a lot of throwing and hurling.
To a degree, every sport has some dangers, right? But we, we operate, we're actually part of a group of axe throwing facilities across the country that's setting up essentially a safety council to make sure that other facilities are doing it the right way as they expand and grow and create. And so as long as you can get over the idea that like inherently everything in life is dangerous, driving a car is dangerous, but there's a way that you can take those, not want to say take those dangers away, but make it as safe an activity as possible.
Well, it's in a controlled environment.
Absolutely,
and you got people watching over and stuff. It's not like you can just walk in here and start throwing axes. No, there's a process. You got to go through it.
Everyone who comes in is going to sign the waiver. Everyone as a first-time thrower has to have mandatory 10-minute coaching with one of our coaches to learn how to do it. That's a non-negotiable. And so we set people up to have a good time.
Perfect. So how do you do? Are you all right? You can throw pretty good?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, I don't want to brag or anything.
We're gonna throw here in a second. I've told Matt that I'm gonna sign the waiver. We'll throw it here real quick and see how I do. Can I ask you an escape room question?
Of course.
Okay, so I've gone and done an escape room.
Yep.
And let me just say this: it was one of those experiences that. All right. I was like staring at things and like trying to like take stuff in and everybody just kind of ran in and started going crazy.
Yeah.
And they just started looking at walls behind pictures. Everyone was just like, what about this? This drawer opens.
Sure.
And just kind of go nuts. And I thought it was the worst strategy ever. Like, I thought, like, why are you going and seeking, like, follow the instructions. You got to go one at a time here. That's because now you're going to have all this stuff everywhere that you don't know what to do with. What's the best strategy for starting an escape room? Like, is it a team leader deal?
Yeah. With escape rooms, we actually do coaching. We do personality assessments. Like, we have this whole other bit with our escape rooms where we help people with how their team communicates and attacks problems and does problem solving.
Right.
But with escape rooms, there's really a couple different facets or time frames within the escape room. And really the first part is what we just call the exploration. And that does look kind of hectic, where you just need people to run around and try to look at and or find everything that they possibly can. And then it's that, like, people, there's some groups and they're awesome at that. And they find everything in 3 minutes. We're like, oh my God, they're going to break out in 25 minutes, right?
Right.
But then they get to the point where they get all that information and it's like, they have no idea what to do with it. They're like, we found everything. What do we do?
Okay.
There's this other group of folks, and they're probably great at figuring out what to do with it, but they don't ever actually go out to look for the information in the first place.
Okay.
So that combination of having the right folks on your team, where it's like, okay, you have the folks that are really like, I see something on the wall that looks important, and there's other people like, well, that also looks like this, and maybe if we combine those two things together, it's going to help us out.
So you got to have the person that like looks at it all kind of just like, let's look at the big picture. Then you got to have the scavenger that goes out there is like, this picture frame moves.
And we have groups, and they'll call us like, hey, we have a 7-year-old. Will they be okay? Will they have fun in our escape room? And what we find with younger kids is there's some of the best people at just noticing things. They're like, hey, why is there this whole packet of information hidden on this chair? And like, no one pulled the chair out.
Go look under that table. Yeah. You're small. Dude, why don't you go take a look?
It's great. They're great for that. So I guess, and succinctly to answer your question, I think there needs to be a combination of both. There needs to be the people who are willing to get their knees dirty and look around for things, and there needs to be the folks that can kind of process the information, put it all together, and make sense of it.
All right. So next time I do an escape room, I need to do a better job picking my team.
There it is. Yeah, get better friends.
Okay, there we go. Actually, it was with family.
There's your problem there.
It was fun. I had a good time. We escaped, but there for a minute, I was like, what are you guys doing? Yep. Everyone just throwing stuff off the walls.
There you go.
This is, I don't understand what's happening right now. It said that we needed to find this, and what the hell are you guys doing? You're driving me crazy. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a quick break.
Yep.
We come back.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna get some audio of this thing hitting the wall.
We're gonna throw some axes.
And see how it sounds.
There it is.
Sounds good.
All right.
We'll be right back here on the Kansas City Podcast. Hey, friends, family, folks, Cole here. Hey, have you checked out our website? Oh wait, I said that last week. Hey, have you written us a review? Oh, I said that last week. Oh, so many things to talk about. Really want to appreciate everyone who's been sharing, and I really want to thank everyone who's been sharing our recent episodes. It's nice to start out 2018 with a bang. Today's episode, I can't say enough about how much fun Blade and Timber is. I've got some other exciting things in the pipeline here with the podcast, so please tell your friends, tell your family to listen to the show. We really appreciate the support. Now, I think it's time to throw some axes. All right, we're back here on the Kansas City Podcast. I'm inside the stall, and I just threw my first bullseye.
It's a big deal, and it was probably what, your 9th or 10th throw ever?
It was, yeah, and I mean, at first I was kind of wimping out a little bit, but then I really actually went for it, and it worked out pretty good.
It takes a second to trust yourself with an axe, and that's probably a good thing.
You know what? You're probably right. All right, we got to get. When we first walked in here, you threw an axe, and you're like, "There's no sweeter sound than it hitting the board." So I'm gonna go down. You've got a. Matt is. I feel like a commentator now. He's winding up. Here he goes. He's throwing the axe. Boom! That's stuck right on there. What you got? So that would be what? 3 points? Three? All right. You want to get one more? Let's one more. This is. There is really no greater sound. That is pretty. It is like a swish. Yes. Boom! Another 3 points. It's incredible. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I'm surprised that I managed to stick a bullseye. I'll put the photo up, but man, it's pretty damn awesome. Pretty damn awesome. How do you feel, Matt?
I feel great every time I come out here, and you would think that it gets old, maybe. Like we've been open for 3 months, and honestly, I'm down here 4 or 5 days a week throwing, maybe just for a few minutes, maybe for a significant amount of time, but it always feels good. This is so much more fun than sitting at your desk.
Oh, without a doubt. It is way more fun than sitting at your desk. It's very, do you have the people that come down here and they're just kind of like, you know what, I need 90 minutes to let off some steam?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. There's something cathartic about it. And really, and even, as we were walking through kind of how you throw, you're not going to walk away sore. You're not going to walk away like, oh, that was a workout. Like there's a rhythm to it. But, I remember Ryan, my co-owner, when his mom came out, she was kind of like, oh, I'm just here to support you. I don't need to throw. And then Ryan's like, Mom, you're going to throw. And she threw. And then from that point, she hogged the lane the rest of the night. She was loving it, just throwing time after time. And so there's a nice little release that I think you get from not just throwing, but hitting the target.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. All right. We're going to throw a few more, but I'm going to give you this chance here to do any plugs or whatever here for the end of the show. Tell people where they can find Blade and Timber, all that good information. So this is your time to shine.
Awesome. So Blade and Timber, we're in the West Bottoms. We may be opening another one in Kansas City, so stay tuned here soon. But we're in the West Bottoms. It's a great time to just bring your friends, bring your family, bring your coworkers. You don't have to be even that adventurous if you want to just have some real good quality time or learn a new sport. We're here to show you not just how to throw axes, but how to become really, really good at throwing axes and hopefully get in one of our leagues as well if you get real serious about it. But if you've never done it, you need to come try it. And once you come try it, you're going to want to come back.
I absolutely agree with that sentiment. Can we get one more? One more sound as we're heading out for today? All right, here we go. We're gonna hit one more here. Oh, he's throwing. Okay, Matt. So he's throwing underhand just for fun. Well, you hit the wall.
That was not a stick.
That was not a stick.
End on that, can we?
No, you cannot end on that. Here he goes. He's got one more.
Back to the normal throw.
Boom, 4 points, just a few inches away from the bullseye. Thank you so much for listening to the Kansas City Podcast. Of course, you can always find me on Twitter at Cole Lindbergh. Check out our website, thekansacitypodcast.com, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at Kansas City Pod. This has been a blast. I may throw a couple more. I 100% agree with Matt. It is... you throw it, and man, it's a blast. It is damn cool. So thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time here on the Kansas City Podcast.